Welcome, reindeers, gingerbread men and women, elves, Santa's little helpers, and all human beings, regular wise of all ages. Welcome to the Christmas special edition, the Christmas chaos edition of the Sports Agents of Chaos podcast. As always, we are your favorite trio, or in this case, a quartet, but it's not a disembodied deerhead joining us this time. Welcoming you to the fastest rising football podcast in social media today, per our own numbers. Source, trust me, bro. But in all seriousness, guys, welcome back to the Sports Agents Chaos podcast. As always, joining you for this lovely affair we're going to have here. Iceman Jared kicking things off. Joined with me, first off, my man at the bottom, Justin Zuckman Zucker. How we doing, bud?
Doing well, man. Always excited to talk another week of football.
Of course. And joining to my right, both for me and I guess technically on the screen, even though I'm turning to my left, but it's really weird the way we have to record this. Podfather Rick is joining us, but also he has a furry friend as well. Hi, Sienna.
She wanted to sit in and join in the fun, so there you go. Merry Christmas to all.
We have a live audience today.
Captive live audience at that, for sure.
A captive live audience. I think the calmest I think she's ever been during a recording.
Oh yeah, probably. I don't know why, but it's great to be here. Let's talk some football.
Of course, guys. We're gonna have a good amount of stuff to talk about. Week 15 was an interesting week to say the least. Two games in particular captured really what the essence of this show is about, which is chaos. And we're gonna get to that in a little bit because, as you guys know, it's fun, football, and chaos. We're gonna talk our football. We have our usual chaos at the end with a special rant edition here for the holiday season, which will be saved to the very end of the show, as always, because it is the main event. But before we get to that, we have the fun. Our games master, he has some games. We have some Would You Rather, and we have some Fact or Fiction. Let's not waste any time. Let's get into it. Justin, give it to us.
All right. I am targeting you both at this point. And you need to convince me. Who would you rather make the playoffs? The Seattle Seahawks or the Detroit Lions?
Oh, come on. This question's terrible.
See, he's targeting both of us.
Okay.
Here.
All right. Let me open up my argument with the Detroit Lions here because obviously we know Joe's going Seattle. The Detroit Lions are the quintessentially the best story right now in all of football remaining that could make the playoffs, I think, because they're a team that was 1-6 to start the year, and they were a team that was being counted out, and they're a laughing stock. Everyone thinks Detroit Lions. You think, oh, they've never made the Super Bowl, but they've hosted the Super Bowl, so it's hilarious. And they're the punching bags of the NFC North. But this is a team that's dangerous. They're fun. They're a young, talented group. You got to love what Dan Campbell's doing if you're Detroit and how they're going. And the fact of the matter is, this is a team that could make the playoffs and could still have a top 2 overall pick. So this could be the turning point for Detroit to be really good for a long time coming. And I think this is a gift opportunity for this young squad and Jared Goff to prove some doubters wrong here. I know that's going to be the same case on Seattle's side, but I think Jared Goff's got a better shot of it for me. So I love this Detroit team. And who wouldn't want to see Aiden Hutchinson going wild in the postseason on the defensive line? Give me the Lions in the playoffs. This is going to be a great story if they make it.
Rick, but outside of that draft point, because they traded their draft pick, that sounded familiar. I think you could replace every time you said Detroit Lions with Jacksonville Jaguars because they're a very mirrored team in the AFC. Believe it or not, they did. They started 1-6. They're a young up-and-coming team. They got a young quarterback. They're exciting. They've had some exciting comebacks in the last couple of weeks. It's interesting. I almost chose the Jaguars for this question, but I thought it'd be funnier to pit Jerg against you. So, Jerg, what's your argument for your boy Geno Smith and the Seattle Seahawks Ring of Honor?
I was going to say, I feel like the Jaguars should be the other team in this because, then again, maybe it might be unanimous because I think even Rick would agree, the Jaguars should, because it would also spike the Titans if the Jaguars.
Exactly. Which is that answer just trumps everything. It's like the terrible cartoon's humanity. Yeah.
It would have worked, but I thought, it was more obvious to go Seattle.
Yeah.
Than it was Jacksonville.
That's fair. Oh man, you put me in a tough spot because I have been the ringleader of the Geno Smith Ring of Honor Hall of Fame case this entire time when it comes to Seattle Seahawks legend and lore. And I have made the mistake one time on this podcast agreeing with Rick when it comes to things. I'm not going to make that mistake again. The in-season story of the Lions has been the most captivating. I will give you that. And if we're talking about just what has transpired throughout the season, I would agree. But I take everything into effect, and I take into effect that you, good sir, Podfather, you You, yes, you. Don't look around. You, Mister, wearing a what jersey are you wearing?
Tebow.
Okay. I just want to make sure.
St. Tebow. Holiday season.
Perfect. You yourself on our preseason predictions had the Seattle Seahawks as not a 3-win team, not a 2-win team,
No.
as a 1-win team to go 1-16, and they have far surpassed those expectations. They have far surpassed anything. And it has been a combination of, at times, the young players on that team that we've been waiting to finally step up to the plate, including some young players from this draft class, Kenneth Walker and Tariq Woolen. Thank you very much. How often do later round rookies, multiple of them, mind you, make an impact for one team? A. B. Pete Carroll, a guy that we were like, he should retire at the end of the season. Why does he still love this? Showing that he still has amazing coaching left in him, because a team that everyone, even outside of our podcast in all seriousness, we're projecting to finish at the very bottom tier of the NFC West, is ranked higher than two of the three NFC West teams that made the playoffs last season, one of them winning the Super Bowl, by the way. And, of course, the Pis de Resistance, spiting Jets, Giants. I'm pretty sure there was one more team he was randomly a backup for somewhere in there. Spiting everyone. Geno Smith, a future Seattle Seahawk Ring of Honor member, who's going to get paid, by the way, which good for him. This podcast is pro players getting paid overall. That's the story. In season, I would give it to you. If you were strictly talking about in season, I would be right there with you, just like I'm sinking on the Commander ship winning the NFC East as well, which that ship is, at the same time, though, if we're talking about from the preseason and everything we said about them and the fact that this team without Russell Wilson, that they should have let Russ cook, you see what's happening in Denver, and if Gordon Ramsay was there, he would have torn Russell Wilson a new one. But here in Seattle, when a true captain, a true quarterback, a true chef that can make a 5-star meal leads the way, Geno Smith, Pete Carroll, cooking. And also, of course, despite Russell Wilson, which, come on now.
I mean, Russell Wilson is to one side, of course. We all had the Seahawks being terrible. I was the only one who believed in the Lions from the get-go, and my belief has been shown to be greater because they've become the hottest team in the NFL now, with a more winnable game this week than your beloved Seahawks do have.
Okay. Yeah, very true. You said it yourself. They were pegged as a team that a lot of people, maybe thought could have made a run. They got the hard knock spot this season. All the hype was put on them, and then they fell down because people started to be like, this whole MCDC thing is kind of a gimmick. To be fair, not our podcast. We always believed in MCDC going into the season, and even when they were 1-6. Whereas this Seattle team, no one gave them a shot. They've proved people wrong. The fact that they're even at this point, if you had told anybody on any show, Week 16, Seattle Seahawks going to compete for an NFC wildcard spot, you would have thought they would have lost their mind. If you had said that about the Lions, you're like, they took a good step. Like, it's two different situations here. Seattle Seahawks, baby. Come on now. Geno Smith, Ring of Honor.
Another team also that's going to have a fairly high draft pick next year due to them trading their quarterback.
Yep.
All right, that's interesting. You guys really believed in those picks.
Of course.
Why wouldn't we? This is what we do.
Listen, I'm happy that question got to you both. You guys both went hard on your choices. That was cool. That was awesome.
Yep.
All right, let's hit the fact or fiction, and I want you to tell me fact or fiction. There will be 2 seeded teams that will lose in the first round of the playoffs in the NFC.
So you mean 2 division winners that will lose in the NFC, you're saying?
Teams. Yeah.
Fact. And I'll tell you exactly who it's going to be. It's going to be the winner of the NFC South, because they're probably going to have to play Dallas, and it's going to be the Minnesota Vikings. Because I'm sorry, I think Minnesota right now, and I'm not saying this to carry over from the last question, Minnesota has kind of breathed a little bit easier the last couple of weeks, given the fact that even after the Buffalo game where they just eked out a win in overtime, they've kind of coasted in some ways. And we'll talk a little bit about this past week and the hole they came out from. But, I mean, you're going to tell me that they're going to be convincing, and they're probably going to have a primetime game on playoff weekend. We know how Kirk Cousins does in primetime. And these wild card teams that are going to get in have nothing to lose. I mean, Dallas is probably going to be the 5 seed. So you're talking about them going to probably face Tampa or maybe somebody else in that NFC South. a 7 seed or a 6 seed could go into Minnesota, whether it's the Giants, Washington, Detroit. I'll give Jerk this love. Even Seattle could possibly go into Minnesota. And I think you're looking at a Vikings team that's going to be a little too close in their heels. There's not going to be a lot of experience in playoff games from Kevin O'Connell. And I don't think the Vikings have all that it takes. So I think this is a factor for me. I think that they will be stunned. The Vikings will have another miserable offseason because they will be stunned once again.
Yeah, I'm with Rick. I say fact. I think whoever wins the NFC South is dead set to get eliminated in that round. There's just no reason to believe on whoever it might be, so we're not even going to touch too much upon that. The Minnesota Vikings, if it was any other team other than the Colts, forget just losing that game 33-0. They're probably going to lose that by even more because the other team would not have stopped at 33. It was an embarrassment that they fell down by that much. Amazing comeback, yes. Historic comeback, yes. Great comeback, yes. Much needed win, ultimately, yes. At the end of the day, the Minnesota Vikings have won some games by the skin of their teeth here, and it's not the kind of skin of their teeth where a Kansas City or a Buffalo or a Philadelphia win where it's like that's championship-making caliber stuff. Except maybe the Bills game. Maybe you could argue the Bills game for them. But other than that, this Vikings team does not convince me that they are going to win because it's only the top seed that gets to bye. So wild card, divisional, conference championship, Super Bowl. This Vikings team is not built to win four games between January and early February. They're not. They just really aren't. And like Rick said, I think between the Giants and the Washington Commanders, I think both those teams have the defense in the playoffs necessary to compete and even beat them. The Lions are the hottest team in the league right now. The Seattle Seahawks, I mean, Geno Smith, need I say anymore? And I know a lot of things would have to happen, including this team would need to beat the Vikings to get into the playoffs, of course, with these other teams in front of them losing. But if the Green Bay Packers somehow, some way can sneak their way into the 7th seed, and look, Rick, I know you don't like Aaron Rodgers, but if Big Brother comes to town, the franchise that is constantly lorded over you, and they finish winning 3 straight games, and one of those games would have to be against you, you would give the Packers the edge going into that game because they have the better quarterback, and they would be the hotter team because they just beat you 2 weeks ago. And there's no reason to have faith in the Vikings right now. I'm sorry. There's just not. And the fact we're saying this about an 11-3 team is absolutely asinine. But that just goes to show how fabricated this illusion of the Vikings has been this season. They're not like they are of the top 3 teams in the NFC. They're number 3, and it's not even close.
There's 2 quick points I want to make. Number one, this tells you that San Francisco, doesn't matter who you put at quarterback, they're a really good team. And we're seeing that too. And the second point I want to make, kind of going into our Week 15 recap, the team that held the biggest comeback was Buffalo in the 1992 AFC wildcard game. You know how the season ended? They lost 52-17 in the Super Bowl. So that was the comeback they couldn't come back from. So,
yeah, rough times to say the very least. And honestly, like, I hate to say it because some of the guys on that team have balled out. And for all we say about him, 1 p.m. Kirk Cousins has performed pretty well this season. But it's not good. Like, this team is pretty fraudulent.
How many games do you think they have win down the stretch? And do we see maybe them fall out of the 2 seed?
They might. They very well could.
If you want their schedule, they play
Giants.
The Giants at home this week.
Giants, Packers.
In Green Bay, in Chicago.
Oh.
I mean, San Fran, for context, has the Commanders, the Raiders, and the Cardinals.
Well, so, yeah. I can see Minnesota winning this game against the Giants and then maybe dropping to Green Bay and resting everybody and finishing 12-5. I can see that. San Francisco, I can see 12-5 as well, and then it would be a tiebreaker. So, I don't know. I mean, again, if the 2 seed doesn't matter as much anymore as it used to. The 2 seed used to be a bye. It doesn't matter as much anymore.
It almost guarantees home field advantage, though, throughout the playoffs.
Theoretically, yeah, absolutely. But, I mean, it's not a bye, you know. And if you're a team that's struggling to make it through 17 weeks of football and you need that bye, having a game the very next week isn't really going to do you a whole lot of good. And that's kind of where a hot team can just surprise you from out of nowhere.
Yep. That's how it goes. That's how it goes indeed. And assuming, let's say the Vikings and 49ers do end up tying, like They both go 12-5. I think, is it conference record that makes the difference between them? Is that the first tiebreaker?
I believe it's going to go to head-to-head win percentage, which I don't think they haven't played each other.
Yeah.
And then it would go to conference games, which
So for
San Fran's 8-2 right now.
Yep, and Minnesota 6-3. And if we're assuming that they're both going to finish out 12-5, that means you're giving San Fran 2 more wins. And 2 of those 3 games are against NFC teams, whereas for Minnesota, you're only giving them 1 more win. All those games being against NFC teams, advantage San Francisco.
Yeah, absolutely. Advantage 49ers.
Easily.
Yep.
So that was outstanding. Thank you, Justin, for another amazing round of games there. We had a lot of fun there. We talked a little bit of football. Let's go talk a little bit more football. We already touched upon it with that. So perfect timing. Thank you, Justin, for the fact or fiction. Let's kind of like round out the conversation with this specific game. It was 33-0. And excuse me, the Colts scored 1 more field goal after they went up after that. So excuse me, Indianapolis, all those Jeff Saturday fans coming in my mentions, aka Jim Irsay's burner account. But the Indianapolis Colts go up 33-0 going into halftime. And then here is what follows. KJ Osborne gets a touchdown in the third quarter to make it 33-7. Chase McLaughlin, 36-7, gets it to 30 field goal, to get to 36-7. I'll give him credit, 52-yard field goal. Okay. CJ Ham, touchdown, 36-14. Justin Jefferson, touchdown, 36-21. Adam Thielen, touchdown, 36-28. Dalvin Cook, 64-yard pass from Kirk Cousins, and then a 2-point conversion caught by TJ Hawkinson. What a run by Dalvin Cook, by the way. That was absolutely phenomenal.
Yep.
And then in the dying seconds of overtime, Greg Joseph with a 40-yard field goal to get the game and seal the ultimate comeback win, the ultimate comeback in the history of the NFL. In this game, it cemented one thing for me, is that not only is Jeff Saturday obviously not going to be kept after this, Matt Ryan's not going to be on this team after the season. Chris Ballard is going to get fired from his position. Like, I could make an argument for half the starters on that defense are going to be gone, aside from Buckner and Leonard and who's the young guy on that team they got from Michigan a couple years ago?
Kwity Paye.
Like, honestly, aside from those 3 guys, like, you can replace the other 8 starters on defense. Terrible. Just utterly terrible. This Colts team, like, it needs to be blown up to King the Cod. This is going to be the biggest nuclear fallout. The Colts should undergo a nuclear fallout this offseason that we haven't seen since Chernobyl. That's the kind of change that this organization needs. It's bad.
Ukraine.
And it needs, I'm sorry. And it needs to be fixed, because if things are not changed drastically, Indy is screwed for a very, very long time. I will cede the floor to, it's mainly been me and Rick doing the talking so far. So Justin, your reaction to what that game ended up becoming.
It's kind of confirmed what we've thought about this franchise the entire year. I mean, right from the get-go, they were very disappointing. And I know they won that game immediately when Jeff Saturday came in, but this is the chaos that we feared was going to happen when we had a guy that has literally 0 professional coaching experience. Comes in and leads an NFL franchise. I mean, it's got to be embarrassing for Colts fans, for Colts team members. They're going to lose their best player now. I mean, it's wild to me that they never brought in Nick Foles at any point. I get that you didn't want to maybe he had some incentivized contract language or whatever, and they didn't want to pay him all that much money. You gotta try and win. I mean, Matty Ice has been terrible. That experiment clearly has failed. They have to start from scratch again. Ellinger, who was the backup, did not play well when he had a chance. He doesn't seem like the guy there. The offensive line is suffering now as a consequence to all of the poor passing game attempts, because they're just stacking the box now. The only player really that was there to fear was Jonathan Taylor, who's now done for the season. So it's been embarrassing. It's slowly getting worse. I don't know how they're going to top it this week. Maybe they lose by 50 to an explosive Chargers offense. But to have your defense score 2 touchdowns in the first half and be up 33 points and lose in overtime, It's the worst loss that I've ever seen. It's the most embarrassing loss that I've ever seen. I wouldn't be surprised if they let Jeff Saturday go for a loss like that. I mean, I don't think they're going to, but it's not like it's not warranted. He hasn't done much other than that random Raiders win. And can you even really credit the Colts? The Raiders have lost some bad games, so that they've given away. So yeah, I don't know what to expect going forward from this Colts team. They may have to go nuclear, like you said, Jerg, but it's really a shame because it was a team that really seemed like they had a window the last few years, and they were only a quarterback away. And the most catastrophic loss I think I've ever seen for a playoff team was the retirement of Andrew Luck, because that's the difference between being a Super Bowl team today and being the embarrassment that we just saw break the record for the largest comeback of all time, given up. So yeah, there's a lot to be worried about in Indianapolis now for sure.
Yeah, and to say the very least, I will say I did see this earlier today. I just doubled back to make sure. Matt Ryan is actually getting benched again, and Big Rick Nick Foles will be starting for most likely the remainder of the season, you would assume. I think we've seen enough of Sam Ellinger for the rest of his career, mind you. I'm sorry, Sam Ellinger. Maybe when the XFL is back, you could get your next starting opportunity. I think it's proven that NFL, not for you, kid. So Nick Foles will be starting for the rest of the season. Rick, any final comments? And we can consider this, I hope, the nail in the coffin of the last time we really need to talk about the Colts until the offseason, because I don't see a reason to talk about this team really for the next couple of weeks, aside from us briefly mentioning that we're picking against them in our pick challenge.
If I'm Jim Irsay, I call Kellen Moore and see if he wants to be a head coach. That's who I bring in. I bring in a young offensive mind, because it's worked with Zach Taylor, it's worked with Sean McVay, it's worked with Kevin O'Connell. That's the trend. I try and bring in Kellen Moore, and I draft a quarterback in the first round, like a Will Levis out of Kentucky, because you need to start fresh. Absolutely.
Yeah, draft a quarterback, please.
Yeah. And not in like the 4th or 5th round. Don't get the guy graduating from Fordham. Get the guy.
I don't care who you bring in, as long as it works.
Well, Sam Ellinger hasn't worked. That's why I'm saying get a guy in the top 10.
I know, but look, I'm all for it. There's generally, I think, a larger hit rate on top quarterbacks if you do in the first round. That being said, how many first-round quarterbacks are in a playoff spot in the NFC currently?
Yeah, it's fair. It's fair.
Bagel.
Yep.
So, and it's funny because it's all first-round picks in the AFC. But anyway.
Well, you want to talk about franchise pieces. We like, I cannot wait for us to actually finally get to the playoffs so we could talk about the AFC quarterback picture, because holy hell, it is stacked in the AFC.
Bad. It's bad.
Yeah, it's massive. It's a murderer's row of who you potentially have to get through as a wild card team. Good luck.
It's funny because the quarterbacks are so overpowering, but you can make the argument that the NFC has better built teams in totality. So it's interesting the way the division's kind of split like that now. The conferences are kind of split right now.
The AFC have the franchise quarterbacks that just need the teams to surround them to make better decisions here and there. The NFC teams have the teams, like you said, they just need the quarterbacks. It's almost like maybe one or two of those quarterbacks in the AFC could stand to look at the NFC and be like, that's wide open. Neat. And then just head over there, to say the least. I will say this because I heard that this was a potential. I think, Rick, before we continue talking about one more game in particular here, I heard about a potential playoff matchup that could happen this year. And let me just double check to make sure it is a possibility. Oh, it is. It is a possibility. And is the current projected 3 versus 6 in the AFC. Bengals Chargers. That is going to be Justin's nightmare game when we talk about that on the podcast, considering the quarterbacks in that one.
I'm just going to start calling them Lamar and Josh Allen.
Oh boy!
Yeah.
Oh boy!
I cannot wait. I cannot wait for us to get Bengals Chargers.
And you know what? Too, on that point, the Chargers have overcome so much. If they, especially after missing out last year on a last-second dish, that would be insane for Brandon Staley and the Chargers. It was, but it'd be insane if they get back.
Yeah. So as we kind of talked about, quite a few wild results happened in the NFL, to say the very least. One more in particular, one moment we're going to discuss, but just a couple notable games I just want to fly through here really quick, and the boys can give comments as we go along. Buffalo Bills and Miami Dolphins, 32-29 game. Interesting game, to say the very least. Bills clinched their 4th straight playoff berth with this one, defeating the Dolphins on a last-second field goal with Tyler Bass kicking a big one there. Funny thing about this game was just fans throwing snowballs at some point, which, come on, Buffalo.
Buffalo needs a dome or a retractable roof.
Yeah.
Like, it's getting
Crazy to me that the new stadium is not projected to have a dome.
zoning. It has to be some kind of zoning issues. It has
Probably.
to be.
You know what's funny? So I don't know. I'm forgetting whose podcast it was. Was it Kyle Bryant's? Maybe. Josh Allen was on a podcast recently, and he was actually asked about comments that Chris Whittingham of Meadowlark Media made about Buffalo, like they should have a dome. And Josh Allen just shrugged it off like it was just a non-factor. And it's like, I don't understand this massive contingent of NFL fans that are just anti-dome when it comes to these stadium conversations.
Competitive advantage. I mean, how many quarterbacks have the arm that Josh Allen has? The ability to put that strength behind the ball that it doesn't matter what the weather is. He can throw in the wind. He can throw in the snow. He can throw in the rain.
At the same time, though, it might also be a detriment if Josh Allen's in the same climate control every single home game because he was slinging cattle, back in Wyoming for all of his life. So,
I was going to say, I know he has all the attributes, Justin, but to me, it would be better if it was the same weather every single week. You wouldn't have to think about the weather. You wouldn't have to think about if it's raining or snow.
But that's the thing. Does Buffalo have to think about the weather? They're prepared.
They should.
They practice in it. They know. It's the other team that's got to worry.
I'm just saying. This is the 21st century. Come on now. Go ahead.
Yeah.
The fact that we're like some people are just brushing that off. It's like, get over yourselves. Dallas Cowboys and Jacksonville Jaguars, 40-34 final score. And we mentioned the Jaguars and how absolutely outstanding they've been. Another team that pulled off a comeback. Cowboys up 27-10 at some point. Jaguars take a 31-27 lead. Cowboys retake the lead. Jaguars with an amazing drive to tie the game. And then Rayshon Jenkins, 52-yard pick six. Boys, the Jaguars are in the playoff conversation, to say the very least.
There's three things I want to say quickly. One, the Jaguars are a dangerous team. Two, Rayshon Jenkins had 18 tackles and 2 interceptions in one game. Get that man a contract like bigger than the moon. And number 3, I'm going to contradict myself a little bit here, but I'm going to say this. If Dallas was facing anybody else, they would be in trouble. But because they're going to probably face the NFC South, they're going to cakewalk through the first round. But this is not a team that's going to be built for the long haul. Dak Prescott is showing you all the red flags. And I'll be honest with you, I'd rather start Cooper Rush in the playoffs than Dak Prescott.
I don't know about that. That last interception was not his fault. He had his receiver on the run, led him, and the dude just coughs it up and tips it right into the defender.
No, I understand your point. I understand your point, but look at that second half. Look at how Dallas kind of just fell apart in that second half.
I don't necessarily put that on the players. I might put that more on the coaching. I do expect them to get a little healthier and maybe be able to scheme a little better for the players that they're missing down the stretch. And they did back into the playoffs, kinda. I know that's hard to say they backed into the playoffs with 3 more weeks of football left, but technically they didn't win to get into the playoffs. They made the playoffs with the loss. But I mean, look, Jacksonville's a dangerous team, absolutely. I don't expect the Cowboys to be an easy out in the NFC playoffs, in the wild card or divisional round.
Well, they're not going to be out in the wild card. They're going to beat down whoever the NFC South team is.
And again, if you're looking at the rest of the NFC as chalk, which I know we're not, but if you look at the rest of the NFC as chalk, they're going to Philadelphia in the divisional round. Or if there are upsets that go the way, they could go to San Francisco.
I was going to say, not necessarily, because if you have 2 NFC upsets, like we just said,
right,
and you have another one, yeah, I mean, they would probably go to San Francisco, which would be an interesting matchup from last year.
Revenge game.
They were a few seconds, a few ticks of the clock away from actually maybe coming out with a victory in that game. So, it'll be interesting. Definitely be interesting.
Yep. Continuing what was a chaotic NFL Sunday, we had the quarterback battle that we all got and that we didn't really know that we needed between Trace McSorley and Brett Rippon. We could just move on from that. That's the only mention that it needs. Trace McSorley is going to be starting this weekend.
Started this week.
Who's his backup? Who the Cardinals signed to be his backup?
David Blau.
Yeah.
David Blau.
It's so bad.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Cliff Kingsbury's going to get fired at the end of the season. It's so bad. Oh, my God. This podcast has been calling it for the entire season.
Yeah,
I didn't.
that's true.
You know what? You guys both said something at the beginning of the season. I didn't really see it. I thought that maybe they'd have another year, and maybe they give him some chances because of the injuries. But if they're expected to move on from their GM, like a lot of reports are coming out now, because the GM has taken a leave of absence due to health reasons, and he hasn't really been super successful in his moves. If they expect to move on from him, you guys I'm leaning towards you guys being right now, because that's gonna be a rough one.
Granted,
You know who'd be a good fit there? D'Amico Ryans would be an excellent fit there as their head coach.
yeah, he would be the guy to instill the culture there. I can't wait for him to get a head coaching opportunity.
He deserves one, absolutely.
Yes, he's going to be an amazing head coach when he gets the opportunity to. Gosh, not only was there chaos, not only was there wild moments, there were comebacks this past weekend. Tampa Bay Buccaneers at one point up 17-0 on the Cincinnati Bengals. Since he rips off 34 straight points against them, to say the very least. I think we all have said our thoughts about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They're just not that good this season. They're probably going to be out of the playoffs if they do end up winning that, just piss poor division. I want to focus on the Bengals here, boys, just really quick. This could be like a quick yes or no. Have the Bengals solidified themselves up there with the Chiefs and the Bills as the top three, as to be the third team in the AFC, at least for this season? I'm not going to talk about long term, but at least for this season, the Bengals are hitting their stride.
You can argue that they are the top team in the AFC right now. It's hard. It's hard not to give them that nod. They did beat the Chiefs recently.
Yep.
So, did they play Buffalo already? I know they had
not yet. I think
coming up. It's coming up this week. Next week.
Yeah. Listen, the Cincinnati Bengals actually have the Cincinnati Bengals actually have a legitimate chance at becoming the number 1 seed.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting coming down the stretch. They do. I mean, obviously, they'll need some help with Kansas City, because they do need Kansas City to lose one game, which I don't necessarily know if it's going to happen.
Come on, Gino.
But
probably not.
Gino, maybe Russ. Listen, Russ put up some points against them. If it wasn't for a couple early touchdowns, they might have pulled that game out. And
aren't they sitting him for the rest of the year, though?
Oh, are they? I didn't hear that.
I was just asking.
No. I think he's cleared to play this week. I think
he was cleared last week, but they left him out just for safety reasons. They were eliminated.
They didn't need him, to be fair. They really didn't need him.
Yeah, look, they have a legitimate chance at being the number 1 seed and closing out their division, which would probably only happen the last week of the year, assuming that Lamar comes back at any point. If he doesn't, then who knows? But yeah, they absolutely have to be considered one of the best teams, if not the best team in the AFC right now.
It's almost like a couple weeks ago when it was asked on this podcast between the Ravens and the Bengals, who do you have more faith in? Somebody here said they had more faith in the Bengals than the Ravens, and he was taunted by his 2 co-hosts. So I would just like to point that out. Thank you very much.
I don't know.
You're talking about me. I appreciate that. No.
Get out of here. All right, let's be real here. The moment we've been waiting for, and the moment that probably gave Mac Jones some night terrors. So the Las Vegas Raiders took on the New England Patriots in a battle of titans, aka Bill Belichick and Josh McDaniels. It was a interesting game, to say the very least. It went back and forth. Again, another comeback. The Raiders were up 17-3 at the half. The Patriots take a 24-17 lead. Then the Raiders go up on a touchdown that probably shouldn't have been a touchdown, with Keelan Cole snagging a 30-yard touchdown pass from Derek Carr to tie the game. And then greatness happened on the final play of the game. Ramondre Stevenson, bless his soul, who was having an amazing game, by the way. He finishes the game with 19 carries, 172 yards, and a touchdown. He finished with a great game on paper. But he gets the ball, and he's running. He's not going to make it to the end zone, but he gashes the Raiders' defense, right? He pitches the ball back to Jacoby Myers, who was the Patriots' leading receiver in this game, with 2 catches for 47 yards. Just goes to show what the Patriots are now. And Jacoby Myers takes the ball, tosses it back to the heavens, and it's caught. Not by teammate Tyquan Thornton, not by Pierre Strong Jr., who Rick had as a late-round steal to the Patriots in our mock, I believe.
That's a fact.
Not by even Nelson Aguilar, although to be fair, Aguilar probably would have dropped it. No. He tossed it to Chandler Jones, who gets the ball, says thank you, turns around, and it's Chandler Jones in the end zone, and there's one thing in his path. McCorkle Jones, and he slammed Mac Jones. He slammed him down harder than your parents would snap down your toy chest when you were a kid when they finally told you to put your toys away. That's how bad it was. Mac Jones got bodied, which ended a day for him where he went 13 of 31 for just 112 yards, 3.6 yards per completion, a QBR of 12.2, and a passer rating of 52.1. Holy hell, what a play. Rick, when you saw that, what happened?
What are you doing, New England? What in what situational football is that the play that you make? Go to overtime, settle it there. If it's a tie, let it be. Now, here's the worst part of that. The pass by Jacoby Myers was the best pass the Patriots had all day. That's been said a lot, but it's the truth. It was the best thrown ball by a Patriot in this game. I mean, poor Mac Jones, man. He's still picking the turf out of his teeth after getting slammed to the ground like that. It was bad, and it gave again. Was that the first time that a Belichick assistant has beaten Belichick? Leave it to the football gods to have the craziest and silliest play be the catalyst for that. I mean, and you know what? I hate to say it, Justin and my Raiders, because I had them as a Super Bowl pick earlier in the year, they're still somewhat alive. Why are they still alive? Why?
And you know what? When they are eventually eliminated, you're going to look to those silly games like the Colts game and the Rams game, the
Cardinals game,
Cardinals game. Like they had so many chances to be the top team in the AFC this year. They have the tools, and they just for some reason can't seem to get it done unless they're gifted a win. And that's basically what happened today over the weekend, because I don't know how that thought crosses your mind to make that throw. He literally just turned around and threw it as far as he could in the opposite direction. I've never seen that happen before in any football game ever. I can't imagine it working out in any way.
Yeah, I have a theory, and it's going to be, whatever, but somebody yelled his name, which is Jacoby, and he heard Kobe, and he just decided to shoot it up because, he wanted to do that. So that's the only way that I think that could have worked.
I can't imagine that's the way it was drawn up.
Probably not. Well, hold on. It's Matt Patricia and Joe Judge running the offense. Are we sure about that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bill Belichick would have taken them out and shot them. They both know.
Are we sure he hasn't?
He still might.
But yeah, and it's a killer loss for the Patriots. I mean, they really had a chance to actually move up in this game, or at least take a more commanding lead over the New York Jets with 3 games to go. But it keeps things interesting for sure. Very interesting. So we'll see if they can maybe get a win this week. But the Patriots have a really tough schedule down the stretch, and their playoff chances really took a hit with that horrible pass.
Yeah, and they have the worst possible quarterback from their draft class there too. Another prediction this pod nailed: Mac Jones regression in year 2.
All you got to do is put in Bailey Zappi, guys. It's the answer to everything.
In all seriousness, the Patriots should probably consider a quarterback within the first 2 rounds of this next draft. They don't have the answer in that locker room. They just don't. Now, they need to address other positions, and this is the rough part when you need a quarterback, but you need to address a bunch of other positions.
But in all seriousness, I know he's been young and he's raw, but there is talent there in Bailey Zappi. So if you want to address another position, get a wide receiver, try and get a Quentin Johnson out of TCU, who's arguably the best wide receiver in his class. Makes sense to do that.
There's talent left in Mac Jones too. They need to work. If they want to work on your offense, because you know what they do. They have a really banged up offensive line this year. They did trade some players. I don't really love their play calling. Maybe they make a change of coordinator, or I'm sorry, offensive assistant. Maybe. And then look, they need weapons. Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith and Jacoby Myers clearly aren't the answer. They have struggled since they lost Rain. I mean, really, it's really always been an issue in Bill Belichick's draft process. The only Hall of Fame player that I could ever think that he drafted offensively is going to have to be Gronk. I mean, Julian Edelman was good. They picked up Wes Welker but these guys aren't Hall of Famers. they're not the answer for you. So they have to figure out some sort of way to draft a position player offensively that can really assist your quarterback. I mean, for as bad as the Jets quarterback play has been, look at what Garrett Wilson has done for that offense. Look at what Elijah Moore has done for that offense. They've drafted well offensively with these position players.
Hall
It's
before
made
he
a
got
difference.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I didn't say a running back because they do have pretty good running backs in Ramondre Stevenson and
Insert someone named there.
no, what's his name? He's been hurt. He's a really good running back though. He's on my fantasy team. When he's healthy, he does well. But yeah, it's wild to me that they can't seem to find these players. They really need to go out and they need to draft well offensively and give these kids a chance to play well, because with the play calling that's happening and the pressure they've been under, they're not going to win a lot of games that way. Give the kids a chance.
I will say, to put a nice little bow on this, New England is now learning why you don't draft kids from Alabama in the first round.
Well, funny enough, the running back Justin was struggling to name is Damian Harris out of Alabama.
Yes.
Although he was not a first-round pick, to be fair.
He wasn't, so he's fine. But
yeah.
First round in Alabama, don't mix.
He also had 15 rushing touchdowns last season. What a time, eh? All right. By the way, Rick, since you've named several replacements already, real quick, new offensive coordinator for the Patriots next season, who would Belichick pick? You have to go Belichick here. You have to assume like Belichick because, well, he runs it.
Adam Gase.
Art Briles.
Okay, moving on. Ladies and gentlemen, it's one of our favorite times of the show where we start shifting a little bit into the chaos, but still about the football. It's a Sports Ages of Chaos pick challenge here. All three of us get 4 picks from 4 to 1, most confident to least confident. You must pick at least one upset. At minimum, it has to be your 2-point pick. You can go with a tie, but it has to be used with your 4-point pick. I think I named everything. Order of the draft is based off of how we are finished to this point. Before we begin picking, Rick, Podfather, give us the standings.
Congratulations, Jurg. You had a perfect week last week. And so you're now
at one?
Well, I think he said a few in earlier, but Jurg, you're now leading with 95 points on the year. Justin, you are in second place at 90. I have 65 points, and the Deer did not win a single game last week, so he's at 48.
He was close.
He was close.
He was close.
And any other coach but Jeff Saturday, and he would have won for sure. So I am going to go dip back into the well with my first overall pick here, and I'm going to do something that, I've picked against Houston twice in a row, and they haven't really done me anything good. So I'm not picking the Titans.
Okay.
I'm not picking Buffalo because they have a playoff berth, and Chicago, it's supposed to be 14 mile an hour or 38 mile an hour wind gusts, so it's going to affect their pass game considerably this week. I'm not picking Kansas City because they just won the West, so maybe they'll, ease off a little bit. I'm going to go with the hottest team in the NFL right now. Give me the Detroit Lions at 4 points over the Carolina Panthers. Let's go with a nice 8-7 and see where the chips fall. So Detroit's my 4-point pick this week.
Okay.
All right. I guess that's me at the number 2 pick, and I don't like it. So I guess that means I probably should pick a winner. And
I mean, that'd be smart.
We've been talking about a lot of disappointing teams. There's a lot of matchups that I actually like a lot this week. But I'm going to have to say the one that I think I'm most confident in is going to be that Bills Bears game. I'm going to pick Buffalo to go into Chicago and teach them a lesson.
Teach them a lesson. Okay. That's fair.
Bears have been playing well lately, but I don't see it. Bills want that number 1 seed. They got to keep winning.
It's going to be a battle of running games, though, because the weather-wise, like I said, it's going to be 14 degrees in Chicago on Saturday. It's going to be 25-mile-an-hour winds gusting to 38. I don't think Josh Allen's going to throw the ball around a lot, so he can run, but
you know what? We were talking about this earlier. Josh Allen has the arm to throw in that kind of weather, and they have a great underneath game. Those running backs can catch balls left and right. They have Naheem Hines. They have Singletary. James Cook is coming on lately. McKenzie runs a ton of underneath routes, and that will free up the occasional deep shot to Diggs or Gabriel Davis, and they have no help in the secondary there. So
unless
to do really well,
unless it's crosswinds, in which case, God help you all.
It's Chicago.
Yeah. All right, I'll be quick here with my 4-point pick. Give me the Cincinnati Bengals. Let's get to 11 wins here, boys. The Patriots don't scare me anymore. I have full confidence in the Bengals. Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, Joe Mixon, them boys. they're going to have a lot of fun this week, to say the very least, I think. My 3-point pick, give me big clock Brock, because the clock is ticking and Brock Purdy is here to try to end your season. 49ers over Commanders with my 3-point pick.
What?
Big clock Brock. This is a PG show, ladies and gentlemen.
Over Taylor goddamn Heineke? How dare you?
Yes, sir.
That leaves me with a lot of options here.
Well,
There are 3 specific teams that I really, really do like this week. You know what? I'm just going to try and keep my fantasy hopes alive here, because I don't know if you know, guys, but there's a king on the football field on my fantasy team who tends to dominate when he plays the Houston Texans. In fact, he's had over 200 yards, I believe, the last 2 times he's played them, and multiple touchdowns. I'm going to go with Derrick Henry at home and the Tennessee Titans to beat the Houston Texans.
Do I go with an upset here at 3? Probably. Do we know for sure if Russell Wilson's starting for Denver this week?
No, I don't.
I haven't seen a guaranteed.
Okay. Well, regardless, give me the Rams over the Broncos at 3 points. I like Baker Mayfield in this role. I know that they're out, but this is a chance for him to kind of solidify everything, because, you hear Matt Stafford's coming back, so play for your job, Baker Mayfield. So we'll see how they do. So I'll pick that as a modicum of an upset. And then at 2 points, because I feel a little bit better about this now being a 2-point game, I will take the Chargers over Indianapolis. So I'm gonna do what Randy Newman said and love LA at 3-2.
Nice.
I've been talking a lot about this game, actually. I was hoping it would be here for 2 points for my upset. I've actually placed bets on this game in my office with a couple different people. And do you guys understand what I mean when I say this is a trade game? Once every few years, there's a quarterback that comes in that's in a backup role, that comes in and he dominates in a game that he wasn't expected to dominate it in. And all of a sudden next year, he's traded for a lot of money, a lot of picks, signs a big money contract, and generally doesn't work out. But I happen to think that a lot of people are underestimating this Philadelphia Eagles team this week, just because Jalen Hurts is not there. And I'll tell you what, Jalen Hurts absolutely an MVP candidate. The Eagles, for most of the season, I'm not sure if they still do, they've led the league in turnovers, and the Cowboys have been turning over the ball a lot lately. And I got another news for you. Gardner Minshew, he's a very accurate player, and A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith are going to be by far the best targets bet at wide receiver he's ever played with.
Yep.
Pencil me in for the Eagles to steal this one.
I thought you were talking about Trace McSorley for a second.
Nope.
No. Well, technically David Blau this week, Rick.
Or Andy Dalton, maybe.
Great pick right there. I was kind of hoping that they would swing back to me for my upset pick, because I do have to go upset here. Look, this team got me my perfect week last week. I'll bet on them again. They called me a madman. Give me the Packers over the Dolphins. This Dolphins team is trending down, and the Packers are trending up. I think the Packers could pull off an upset. The Dolphins' defense is not special. They're not. There's no reason to.
You're right. That
Like,
I can't see them stopping that up.
The sole reason, not sole reason, the sole thing that the Dolphins missed from Brian Flores' tenure is the defense. The defense was great under him. This defense under McDaniel and this regime, not good. Couldn't stop a nosebleed some weeks. Give me the Packers for my upset. And again, another game, I like it more in my one. They have to win this game. There's no way you can lose this game. The Buccaneers over the Cardinals. If they lose to Trace McSorley or David Blau, holy hell, Brady needs to retire, and he needs to apologize to Giselle. You cannot lose this game if you're Tom Brady.
He needs to apologize to Jill. He needs to apologize to her regardless, but that's another story for another time.
No, he doesn't. We praise our toxic kings. At least I do.
I don't.
All right. I mean, you guys are going to give me the number 2 seed in the AFC. I guess I might as well take him. I don't think that the Seahawks have enough defense. They might put up some points against the Chiefs offense, but I expect them to get after Geno. Give me the Chiefs as my 1-point pick.
Which leaves me with, at number 1, I talked about him. I like this matchup. They're a good team. Well, they were a good team that had some hard times. and they've come back, and they've been stronger. And God damn it, I believe in that ginger man. Give me the Saints over the Browns at one point this week. Let's see if New Orleans can continue this run and be a surprise NFC South champion at some point. So reviewing very quickly, Jurg, 4 points Cincinnati over New England, 3 points San Francisco over Washington, 2 points Green Bay over Miami, 1 point Tampa over Arizona. Justin, 4 points Buffalo over Chicago, 3 for Tennessee over Houston, 2 for Philadelphia over Dallas, and 1 point for Kansas City over Seattle. Myself, at 4 points, Detroit over Carolina, 3 points for the Rams over Denver, 2 for the Chargers over Indianapolis, and 1 for the Saints over Cleveland. And Sandoval's picks, you've all been waiting for him. At 3 points, the Deer is taking the Minnesota Vikings over the New York Giants. At 2 points, the Deer has elected to go with the Atlanta Falcons over the unsure who's starting at quarterback Baltimore Ravens. And then at 1, in a surprising 6-8 versus 6-8 game, go Steelers over the Raiders. It'll be fun. It'll be a lot of fun.
Fun to say the least. That was this week's pick challenge, which of course, as always, leads on to the full chaos of the rant podium. But it's a little different. Rick, give the intro.
I mean, just watch it for yourself and enjoy.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, a Sports Agents of Chaos production, a Podfather Rick production, we present to you Twas the Night Before Rantsmas.
And happy holidays to all. In the spirit of this great holiday season, and also in the spirit of covering things that don't belong to you and doing them slightly worse, I present to you 'Twas the Night Before Rantsmas. Please enjoy. 'Twas the night before Rantsmas, and all through the pod sat a motionless deer head, all antlers, no bod. The picks had been chosen, the selections were shared, and all through the episode, the deer, well, just stared. Across this great country, the teams would play ball and cheer on their savior, the great Sandoval. But on this night, it seemed we all could just rest. The podcast had begun its end-of-season jest. When out on the gridiron arose a great doink that felt like being pulled out of bed with a yoink. Away to the press box I ran with great pace, only to find StreamYard had vanished with no trace. The deer had been summoned to rise from its slumber, and with this apparition comes this horrible number. As when my terrified eyes saw what was below, I screamed, "It's Adam Rank with a Dunkin' box of Joe!" It appeared as if Sandoval was due to be quick, unlike Speed 2 with Jason Patrick. But the deer moved forth slowly, ere making its gains, and I heard him bellow out some horrifying names. "Now Bezos, now Rogers, now Watson, you scum! On Cheez-Its, on tacos! Banish him to Belgium! I call on you all and grant you this wish. Bumblebees, bumblebees, bumblebees are now fish." With a puzzled complexion, I walked to my chair and sat with no Wi-Fi, much to my despair. So out to the backyard, I took my laptop, for the dial-up was slower than deli lines at Stop and Shop. I walked through the patio and felt I was lucky to avoid the random toddler in the midst, dressed as Chucky. I had to pinch myself, though, to make sure I was alert, as the costume was just a $4,000 mohair skirt. Sandoval rose from the fog with a gaze, his antlers adorned with the greatest of displays. Pizza's creator than Jack-o'-lantern's infinity, political fist bumps, customer service from Xfinity. Climate activists shown supergluing their hands to a series of portraits of subways, witches of sand. And with a snicker, the deer let a white wire go. The Ethernet cable rose towards Kilimanjaro. I raced through the fever dream to see what unfurled and realized this feels like Coca-Cola Dream World. As I rose higher and higher to snatch down the link, Sandoval sneered, "Let me fetch you a drink." The deer threw open a fridge. To my chagrin, eyes wide with terror, I saw what was in. Soda varieties forgotten from my brain. Pina colada, pineapple, pumpkin, the pain! And the deer summoned warriors from rants past and beyond to keep forth the chaos and us from feeling fond. Somehow I thought This was the weirdest I dreamed when next to Sandoval stood Sam Bankman-Fried. In addition to that devil all dressed like a nerd, were more horrifying creatures from his demon herd. To the left, Royce O'Neal, breaking ankles of his mom. To the right, my great nemesis, Brady, first name, Tom. His head tilted upward and prepping for war, I saw his eyes twinkle like never before. Sandoval erstwhile sung out with glee a loud cry, death, taxes, and Trent Balti! And just when I thought it could only get worse, there stood in the distance a hero, not a hearse. Now Jurg and Justin may know him by name, but I believe I shall tell you his true claim to fame. Next to this figure, spreading through the dusk, was a larger-than-life celestial body named Musk. These heroes were here to save us from the beast, and even Jim Harbaugh, who I feared the least. The figure must have stood about 40 feet tall, like Kevin Durant screaming, "Give me the damn ball!" And Sandoval knew when he gawked at the ghost, the spirit of the season is what meant the most. With a nod from Lord Elon, the figure attacked. Sandoval rallied, but began to fall back. When the deer ran into another presence we all know, Lord Elon acknowledged this man named Gino. The being took Sandoval and launched him like a turkey when he landed splat as an R on the sign to Albuquerque. In a flash the ground shook, and comparison pales to that one fateful summer in my beloved Wales. Sandoval roared with an anger so mighty, his battle was lost. He was defeated quite rightly. The last sound he made, the last sounds akin, were a snort and a snivel and a "Damn you, Justin!" The villain was defeated. The clouds began parting, like the burnt orange material on Quinn Ewer's Aston Martin. And I must confess to you folks on this day that the hero of this story is, yes, Jurg, it's Harambe. He gave me a wink and a twitch of his nose, and away through the clouds the gorilla's spirit rose. It filled me with relief to be back on this globe, as I realized that now I must get this show closed. This Rantsmas was one we'll always hold dear, and truly be thankful for headphones in our ears. And if Harambe could speak, I'm sure that he'd say, "A happy holidays to you all. Enjoy your footballing days."
Wow.
It takes me back to yesterday when I recorded that.
that may have... Holy hell. That was
Did we just peak?
you know what? I think we jumped the shark.
Yep. All right, I'm gonna do some chicken.
Yeah.
He literally
It's been a good ride, I guess.
He literally summarized the first 40 weeks of the show.
I did.
Oh my God. Which,
That's
by the way,
incredible.
ladies and gentlemen, next week is the 40th episode of the pod on New Year's Eve. How amazing is that? Oh, good gracious.
Quite nice.
Will this podcast continue and be any better in 2023 than this? Probably not. I think this is probably the best the podcast is going. So to all of you who have joined us for the rise, thank you so much. And for our inevitable fall, we hope you continue to watch. Thank you so much for joining us on this week's outstanding episode of the Sports Agents of Chaos podcast. It's Christmas chaos, like it is in the title. In all seriousness, guys, thank you so much for everyone that has watched us throughout this year. Of course, we still have one more episode where we'll give our final yearly goodbyes then. But thank you all so much. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays to you and yours, to everyone that watches, to my amazing co-hosts that do this with me on a weekly basis and deal with my chicanery on that as well. Thank you, fellas. Yes. Thank you all. Ladies and gentlemen, we will see you guys back